Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today. This is going to be one of the most important leadership, manager to leader. Sorry, I got to change my screen. One of the most important manager to leader master classes that you attend. If you're attending any master classes this year, or going to any conferences this year where you're learning stuff how to upgrade yourself as a leader, become a more influential leader, become more a better leader of yourself. This webinar right here and the information that I'm talking about today in sharing with you is something that I wish I would have learned 20 years ago. And I think that, and I teach every new team member and leader coming into my organization today about this subject to make sure that they're so inundated with the information that they can regurgitate, train others, and apply it to their own selves and to their work. And I think one of the most critical skills that every leader needs to have is going to be about the content that we find in this training masterclass today. So this is part 2 of a series on becoming a strong leader. And if you're going to become a strong leader, this is going to take time. This is going to take effort, and it's going to take intentionality. You will not become a strong leader without intentionality. Nobody says, just like I mentioned in the last webinar, oh, here's a born leader. The doctor doesn't say when a child is born, it's a born leader. He says, well, this is a girl, or well, this is a boy. But he doesn't say, oh, look, a leader appeared. It's just not the case. Leadership is learned over a lifetime. Some of us are more inclined to be able to lead. Maybe you have a stronger voice and a more spicy character. Some of us are more reserved. Some of us are more quiet. But in any case, anyone can learn to become more of the things that cause us to be able to lead. And so as we go through this masterclass today, I hope that you take with it something that you can directly apply, because if there's one thing that I am, it's something I take the piece of theory and then I want to bring it straight down to earth so you can apply it in your life and in your business immediately so that you can put it to work and actually receive the benefit from it as quickly as possible. I'm one who I didn't like reading early in my life. It was always a struggle for me. I just didn't get anything out of it, and I saw lost potential. You'll learn about this a little bit later as we go through why that's so important. But I saw lost potential in the time that I was spending reading. I could have gone out and gone fishing and caught a fish, or I could go. I used to be a trapper when I was 12 years old, and I would go along and I'd set a trap line, and I loved that part of being out in the nature and actually productively doing something with my hands and my body, so that I would actually maybe have something that I brought home for the day and said, look, I did this. I used my potential to do this. And so I had a hard time early on reading, but then later on, as I got into my formative years and growing into my leadership role now as CEO of Taika Translations and the TVP team, it really took me on a different journey to where I had to become better. And I really understood that all of those great principles that leaders and teachers talk about need to be applied. You need to be able to take them and apply them in order to be able to succeed. And so I did. That's what I started doing. And for a large part, that's why we've had such great success in the organizations that operate today. And we're very proud of those. So this masterclass, guys, again, about becoming a strong leader. And I named it The Forge because you are drawing out your unique ability to lead from yourself. And drawing out this is, I think, one of the most important things that every single leader has to aspire to do in order to be able to effectively lead. Now, this is a differentiation from just being a line manager to actually going into a full-blown leadership role. And I think it's vital for leaders to know how to apply it to their own situation and then how to successfully lead their teams. And so my team members know about this. If you would ask them about the content that we're talking about today, they could carry on a conversation about it because I talk about it and I see it's so important for our ability to produce work. Now, it's not something pie in the sky. Remember, I keep fast forward in my mind to a place in the slides, and I don't want to get there too fast. But remember, lost potential is like the biggest of all sins to me. having potential that could have been delivered or utilized, and it's just not. And you'll see why I feel that way later. So, drawing out your unique potential to lead. And believe it or not, every single leader has to identify their unique way potential, what makes them tick, what makes them energized, and what gives them fire to continue on. Because if you don't find this out, I might be getting ahead of myself again, you might burn out. All right, so you and your authentic approach. Everything must be done at the beginning of a business. This is if you're a leader, maybe you got promoted and you got promoted into position. Just everything has to be done. All of it. Everything from HR to payments to taxes, for Christ's sake, to production problems, quality assurance, the whole gamut. It's all there. It all must be done. And so many times at the beginning, you're just part of this process. And it's painful and it's challenging. And you start doing it all. And you're somehow involved in everything. And because you're involved in everything, guilt starts building inside of you, because there are things that must be done in business, and you don't realize it at first because you just do it because you need to make money to feed your family. But over time you realize, like, oh my gosh, I hate doing that. But I have to do it because my business won't stay alive if I don't. So I got to do that. And you have, a few other team members around, and you're working. Everybody's working their butts off, and you're trying to get everything done. And over time, what you find out as a leader is hope for success in your position, even if the business is growing, even if you're expanding or having some success, it starts to fade. Because what is required to operate your business are some of the things that you hate doing. And now this is a way of life, and you don't really know what to do, but it's your reality, and it sucks. And you wake up on Monday morning and you wonder, 5 years into this thing, is this going to be worth it? Like, this is sustainable. I had a dream. And it's dissipating before my eyes. It dissipates in the small minutia of all the tasks that must be done through the process of our businesses. At 8 years into your business, you continue operating. So you were at 5, now we moved to 8 years, and you just like, my dream was supposed to be awesome, but now it's just depressing. And it's become this terrible grind that I have to do to stay in existence. You love the work, you enjoy the thing that you do. If everything would just always work, and you love your team, but on Sunday, so many times you're sitting on the couch thinking about the week ahead, and you just wish you didn't have to go. And you just look at it and like, man, how did it all come to this? And you start feeling burned out. Completely burned, toast, dead chicken in the sun. You start losing your own motivation. You've been at this for years and years and years, and nothing has changed. But because you're a noble, hard-charging, powerful entrepreneur, you show up yet again. You show up to fight anyways, and you've been doing it now for years. If you don't want to feel this way, I want you to be paying very close attention to this masterclass, because this masterclass is where you convert from that reality to a new one. Too many leaders are unnecessarily suffering, and managers are working to aspire to become leaders. You're unnecessarily suffering. And sometimes this is the reality. It's the reality I've seen many entrepreneurs in. They tout themselves like, oh, look, our numbers are growing, our success and everything. And then you see them on Sunday evening as they think about the week ahead. It's like, just freaking miserable. I just don't want to do it anymore. Why is that? And I think most of the reason lies with what we're about to talk about in a few minutes. My name is Jason Ellinger. I'm the CEO of Taika Translations and the Vision People. We call it TVP team. I would really appreciate it if right now you would like and subscribe to our channel video and subscribe to our channel. We put content like this out every single week. Wednesday, 8:30, 9:30 Central. Put this video out. We put content out to help people win, to inspire people that winning is still possible, and that through the challenges of business and life, that we walk with you through that and give you some of the information, the knowledge, the tools, and some inspiration at times to be able to charge through and get to that next step. So please like and subscribe, and we're going to move forward into the content. Business is hard. It's just straight up hard, freaking hard. And anybody, I'm just tired of the TikToks out there. You get on TikTok and it's like, oh, I built this business and I produced $40,000 per month. And I did it with AI in the last 37 days. And you're like, shut the heck up. Business is freaking hard if you're going to stay in it. Maybe if you've been in it for 6 months or 37 days or 18 months, maybe it's easy. But if you're going to be in it long term, you're going to find out maybe not quickly, you're going to find out that it's hard. Businesses that start this year, the statistics are that businesses that start today, in the year 2025, more than 95% will fail. They will be closed before 12 months. Why is that? Because business is freaking hard. It's straight up hard, and we aren't prepared for the hardship of it. And that's why I put this content out, because I want you to be prepared for that. And when it comes, you just break through those walls with brute force and you prosper. You don't crumble under the stress and pain of it. And that's why these videos are coming out. So if you don't learn how to learn who you are and then lead from those clear personal talents, you will find yourself burning out again and again and again in every single role you fill. Everyone. This masterclass. This masterclass is about how to overcome that eventuality, because it will come. And if you're not prepared for it, and if you have the knowledge, skill, inspiration, and understanding on how to charge through and break down that barrier, you will smack that wall and you will fall backwards and you will get burned out. I learned this after 8 years in business, and it changed my life. And it changed the lives of everyone on my team. And that's why I'm delivering it to you today. I couldn't think of a more appropriate next lesson in this masterclass series. So business is hard. Whatever you see on TikTok and Instagram, it's a load of crap. It's not true. Your grandmother said it, right? If it sounds too good to be true, probably is. All right, so Patrick Lencioni, a great genius of a business consultant, one of my favorite heroes of all time. He wrote a book called 6 Types of Working Genius. How convenient. I have it right here on my desk. By the way, he doesn't pay me anything. And I actually have never spoken to him in real life. I just use his content, and I just use all of his books in my business. And it's helped us to become much more successful, peaceful, and way happier as we operate. So if you want the book, go get the book. But I'm going to talk about how to apply this content in this book and how to view it through the eyes of a leader and develop yourselves into that. In all work, in the life cycle of producing anything. Now, this is like, it's a theory, and we have very swift movement to practicality, because all the theory in the world, if it doesn't get to practicality and forward movement in some way, shape, or form, it's kind of useless. And I hate stuff like that. I hate crap like that, because I can't stand wasting my time learning something if I can't apply it. So we're going to talk about what it is, and then we're going to quickly go to application. All right. In all of the work life cycle, producing absolutely anything, there are elements or characteristics, intrinsic forces of nature that I believe, because I'm a Bible-believing Christian, that God gave to each and every one of us. We're going to call them forces of nature / geniuses. Patrick Lencioni calls them geniuses, and I'm calling them forces of nature / geniuses, because forces of nature give you the element of understanding that it's far greater than just this pretty little word, genius. It's far more powerful and influential throughout your organization. It's something that's a force that's almost greater than yourself if you harness that leadership potential that's inside of you and apply it. So wonder, I'm going to go over the six geniuses, forces of nature. Wonder, a person who can ponder, see greater potential in almost anything, and it often frustrates them when potential is not tapped into. Now, as I speak, I would like you to think about, maybe because of some of the things I've already said to this point, maybe what my geniuses are. And if you've guessed it correctly, put it in the chat. Let us know what your guess is about what my geniuses, forces of nature, are. A person who can ponder and see great potential in almost anything, and it often can frustrate you when potential is not tapped into. Invention, you have new ideas every second. Ideas are your thing. You wish that people would just come to you with a problem that needed a solution, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have 7 ideas that might work. And you enjoy this rapid fire explosion of ideas, and you're excellent at it, and they could facilitate something somehow, and you have this talent of just coming up with stuff. By the way, I'm just going to give you a clue. For me, this is one I actually hate. I'm very bad at this. I don't like this area. Discernment. You almost without fail intuitively know something will work. You love and you get great joy out of analyzing and making the correct decision. And it's almost without any great depth of association with the content or the information, you could pretty much make the right decision because you're just intuitively, intrinsically good at it. It's this force of nature that kind of always is. People tell you, wow, that was a really perceptive thing that you did. And how did you know how to make the right decision? You're like, I don't really know. I just felt that. And you kind of can work through decisions very quickly and easily, and with this very powerful genius, force of nature, of discernment. And then there's the igniter, the galvanizing person who can rally and inspire other people and loves to do this, and they move projects forward fast, and people follow them, and they get great joy and energy from doing this thing. Like, hey guys, all of us have to get to California, and there's 3 cars and there's 30 of us. How are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do this. We're going to grab these people. We're going to go rent a car. We're going to make this really, we're going to plan. This is where we're going to stop along the way. And this is our objective when we get there. And guys, let's get ready for this meeting. This is going to be a powerful, forward-moving thing for our organization. Let's get up and do this. Ready, guys? Ready, set, let's go. This is the igniter, the galvanizing force of nature. Enablement. You know how to make stuff happen. You're like, somebody brings an idea to you, and you're like, oh, well, I know how to make that work. When other people would look at it, they're like, man, we need that accomplished. We're just not sure how. And you're like, well, it's easy. Can't you see the connection? Like, this is how we're going to do that. This is actually how, like, that objective is here. We're here, and we need to do these things to get there. And this is the process. And they're able to enable the work to come to life, to make it happen, to fill in all the intermediary pieces so that there's no big steps. It's like, okay, it's just this step, then that step, then that step, then that step. And by the way, I can do all of them. Or I can do most of them, and Paul over there, he can do the rest of them. And like, this is easily done. And then there's the finish. The person who has very great tenacity. Anything that is started must be done. It must be completed on schedule, on time. And if it's not completed on time, there's a tragedy. We are failures. But we will complete everything on time. We will cross the finish line. And if we don't finish on time, we will create a new deadline, and we will cross that deadline. That's this finisher with powerful tenacity. So you make sure every project, no matter what, if you're a part of it, it's going to be done, and it's going to be done on time. And none of the details are going to be forgotten because this tenacious desire to cross that finish line. All right. You might see yourself in some of those. So if any of you guessed by now which one I am, please put it in the chat. Which one is Jason? So guys, first, now listen, we're going to go through this content. It's kind of, I'm going to go through how to do this. And then I'm going to say, all right, this is how to do it. Again, in a very simplified way. And I hope that we make it very, very simple, down to earth, so that as we get through that, you're able to take it and run with it. All right, the first step into leading in your own authentic way is to find out which of these that you are. Which of them are you? Which of these geniuses / forces of nature are specific to you, that you are the best in the world at, and maybe the best on your team? So there's an assessment that you can go take. Again, I don't get paid for this. Patrick Lencioni, he made this really cool assessment. And Patrick Lencioni, if you're watching this, please reach out to me. Would love to talk to you about affiliate agreement. Otherwise, go take this assessment from Working Genius, and it will help you to identify very quickly, in like 15 minutes, which of these geniuses is strongest for you. And then we can take that information, and you need to do the same exercise with everybody on your team. Now, you don't have to go and take this assessment for everybody on your team, because after you've taken the assessment, you kind of know what the assessment is. And then you can just go through it with your team and be like, okay, which one are you? And then you can talk through your experience with them and how you experience them in the workplace, and pretty much identify very accurately which ones are the people on your team. Some of the people I've just given the book to, and I'm like, look, read through this model, tell me which ones you are. And I will then give you feedback as to whether or not I am experiencing that as we work together. And we'll just make sure that's exactly who you are, so we don't miss it. That's why it's a very important that this team members get very, very clear about what this stuff, about what the definitions are, so that you can very clearly understand who you are and write them down. So take and write these down. These will help you identify your core areas where you excel. Pat calls them geniuses. I call them forces of nature / geniuses, just to kind of amplify the effect of it, amplify the understanding of what it actually is capable of doing for you and your business and just your life all in general. If you do not identify your core geniuses, you cannot know what work kills your joy and sucks the life out of your soul. Very important. I'm going to repeat that a little slower. If you don't identify your core geniuses / forces of nature, you cannot know what work kills your joy and sucks the life out of your soul. If you do not know this, then how are you going to be able to identify it when you're working in that? All right, let's move forwards. That was too slow. Your genius profile. You have 2 geniuses, 2 forces of nature, your sweet spot. You could freaking do this all day long. You derive great energy and joy from this. It is just you 100%. And when you're operating that, you know it, and your team knows it. Like, this is the bomb. I love this work. I could do this. I mean, I would do this on my vacation if I could. If I could still participate with my family and be on vacation to do this type of work, that would be awesome, because I love it and I'm great at it. And everybody always tells me I'm good at it. And then you have 2 competencies, 2 things you're good at, you don't love it, but you can operate in them very effectively. And a lot of the times it's not like sucking any of the life out of your soul, but it's not something you derive great energy from. You're just competent. And then you have 2 areas that you just hate. Like, you just hate it with a passion, and you would rather not come to work than have to do work in those sections. You hate it. Now listen, very important. Too many times we have team members working in areas they hate, doing tasks in areas they hate, and worse, people were promoted who were very high performance in a section, and they were promoted into roles that they hate, because the tasks assigned to that roles are all the tasks that are not in their genius. And when they're not in their forces of nature's geniuses, and they're promoted into that role, and all of a sudden they get there, and their next supervisor is like, man, you were so great, you were on fire before, and now we promoted you into this other thing. and you suck. What happened? Like, where's your morale? It's like you died. Your bones dried up. And actually, I think there's a lot of truth in that. Like, it's kind of like soul sucking, joy killing, kind of drying up and shriveling up inside. That's why it's so important for us as leaders to identify the areas that we are best at and then draw them out so that we can make sure that we apply them for our teams. All right, refocus here real quick. We're kind of getting a little broad. That was for our team. That was for like kind of a little bit more like the greater organization, but I want to refocus, just kind of pull it back in, because this is about you as a leader, upgrading your own ability to lead, really drawing out your ability to be the best unique leader that you can be. Now for this masterclass, it's about you and how you can lead in your lane. As you grow the company, there will be tasks that only you can do as a leader of your organization, and I understand that very clearly. I'm the CEO of Taika Translation and TVP team, and there are some things that I cannot delegate. I cannot delegate managing my direct reports. And if that's something that you hate, well, we're going to talk about that in other lessons. But right now, we identify what our geniuses are, and we identify what area of I said the wrong thing. We identify what work tasks that we have, and we make a very clear outline of those, and we identify what geniuses coincide with those work tasks. And you can clearly see this as you work through this. You write down the work tasks that you have and what geniuses are. And then you acknowledge and budget how much time you spend working on the task in your business that require the application of that genius/force of nature that sucks the life out of you. You will find very quickly, if you hate your life and your job, you will find very quickly the types of tasks that kill you and suck out the life of your bones and your joy, and that kill you and your motivation, your ability to lead. Because if you're a demotivated team member, if you're coming to work and you didn't want to on Sunday evening and it's Monday morning, your team knows this. Be careful that you look at all the tasks and find leaders in your company that can help take those tasks that coincide with that genius and delegate to them if possible. We're going to continue through this. Some tasks are not possible. We talked about this to delegate. It's only you doing it, but we'll talk about how to get through that in just a moment. It's important that everyone on your team knows your personal forces of nature / geniuses, guys. And it's important that they know theirs too. And every leader needs to know the geniuses of their team. That's why once you take the assessment and you write these things down, you actually have the sheet that you can, when necessary, and I refer to them quite often each week as I go through different types of meetings, or there's different people required for different meetings. I look at the meeting and what I think will be required for that meeting, and then I add the people on our team that have those best geniuses to that meeting to make sure that they're a part of it, and that I understand that they are the ones who can most likely be the best contributors. So what you need to do as a leader is to tell people what your geniuses are. Explain to them who you are and what your best talents are, where you love working, what your best geniuses are. Your two highest operating, like, this is my sweet spot. I love being here. I love doing work in this area spot. And explain this to your team. Now that you've taken the assessment and you've helped the team members to go through the assessment or understand what their geniuses are, now you can clearly understand, they understand what the heck you're talking about, and you can clearly communicate in a way that impacts them, so that when you work through the work task part, you can actually draw out understanding what kills people's joy and what causes morale to die. So you should know when you or when your team members are working outside of their genius force of nature. After you've done the assessment for yourself and you had each of your teams go through it, create the chart, identify where your strengths lie. We already talked about this. This all goes into being better and working on your strength as a leader. After you make the chart, create the list of work tasks and write down the genius required to excel in that task. Now, this is very important. This is like, we talked about this a little bit ago, but this is a little bit different. So you were doing this individually as a leader. Now you need to write the work task down required to produce the thing, to reduce the task in that position, and find out what genius is required to do that. Sometimes some of the tasks need to be shared or moved to other positions or flipped, because if you don't, if you have team members consistently operating in places they hate, either you need to change the task to a different position or find a new person to fill that role that actually matches that genius. You'll find you hate some tasks, and you would, and there's, I already said that. We're gonna do some all day. I don't know. I repeated myself a little bit here. So guys, going back to mine, my geniuses are wonder and finishing, tenacity. So I can ponder the state of things, bring questions, improve systems, and capture missed potential, like almost intuitively, like, oh, I can see that there's probably some kind of a challenge or issue there, and somehow I capture that and understand that, and then I can work the potential into becoming productive. And then when the right path or objective is determined, I almost kind of, without the acknowledgement of obstacles, push through them. It's like, yes, there's going to be challenges along the way, but because I'm tenacious, I'm a finisher in every sense of my person, we just break through them and we continue charging until we're done. To me, the obstacles, they're just like a step in the process, and eventually we'll get through there, and we'll get through to the finish line, and we'll do it at all costs. But it doesn't even seem like so much of a cost to me, because it's just a step in the process. Being tenacious and finishing is something that I'm very passionate about. So mine is wonder and tenacity. So now write down what you do every day and the genius required and how it impacts your business. Then look at those and identify which groups they really suck the life out of your day. The juice, the joy, the energy, that take your time. Even if you just do it for a little while, it still sucks out all of your joy. And have your team do the very same thing. Now, this is where we get it very practical for everybody on the team, okay? Odds are, if you're feeling burned out or frustrated and having a loss of desire to come to work on Monday, there's some real problems with where you're spending most of your time as a leader. Now, that's just kind of real talk. I wanted to make sure I really drive that point home, because as you're operating in your business, and if you're finding yourself constantly frustrated on Monday and not wanting to arrive and be part of the team on Sunday, not wanting to arrive and be on the team on Monday, then there's probably some issues, and you're going to have to identify those so that you can share those and distribute them throughout the team, and maybe change some of the tasks or give somebody permission in another area or in another role, even if it's a lesser role, to be able to practice more of that in your organization. Everyone on your team knows this. Everyone on your team knows that when you hate working, when you feel like it sucks, they all know when you're doing stuff that you don't like, that you're just kind of angry and you're just kind of pissed off. They know this about you. They just don't say it, probably because you're the boss or you're the leader, you're the manager. But it's important for you to identify that for them and lead them in this transition. Now we're going to be a team that pulls out the most impactful, productive things for our entire organization, and pulls out all of these geniuses and forces of nature and puts them to work for the benefit of our team, the organization, and everybody's lives. And we're going to create the best solutions, programs, outcomes, and in whatever we do, whatever it is that we do, we're going to create the most advantageous for even our clients, because now we're operating, most of the time, our team is operating in these zones. You have your forces of nature identified and your worst tasks and work tasks, and you review all of these for that your company needs you to operate in. And it requires you as a leader to be able to articulate the maturity to understand that even if I'm doing this thing and I've been doing it for a long time, and I think that I have to do this, it may be, and is likely, not the case that you have to do it. It could be that somebody else could do that, maybe laterally or lower on the chain of command than you. And you're just holding on to that thing because I don't know, some personal reason that you feel that you're the only one who could really do that. Or maybe you don't really trust your team as much as you talk about trust, or as much as you talk about the core values in your organization and how we are a people of integrity. Maybe you really don't trust everybody on your team, and so you're keeping some of those tasks back to you because you're afraid that you can't trust. It's getting kind of warm in here. So I'm sweating a little bit. Hope you can't see that on the screen too much. Um, and so you don't have that very deep vulnerability based trust with your team, and you're holding on to tasks that you shouldn't be holding on to, and those tasks are making you miserable. But it's because you can't trust your team that you can't delegate them to your team. But there's somebody on your team who is a genius at that thing, and if you could trust them, it would make their life so much better, and it would make your life so much better. But sometimes those types of things and that lack of maturity or growth as a leader, or ability to cultivate and articulate and connect with our team, keeps us from being able to share tasks and move them throughout the organization as we should, or it allows somebody else to take a position that we kind of think a leader is supposed to take. Like, for example, galvanizing. Everybody, look, shouldn't the CEO always be a galvanizer? And you actually, if you look back on those slides, you'll see I'm not a galvanizer. I'm not that is not my genius. Can I galvanize? It's one of my competencies, yes. But it's not my genius. I don't just love working in that area. I love pondering new opportunities and the possibilities and amplifying, utilizing lost potential. And I love taking things all the way across the finish line. That's my genius. Those are my genius areas. But galvanizing is not. It's a competency. But everyone's like, well, the CEO always have to be a galvanizer. Sometimes it's required. We'll get to that in a second. Sometimes, yes, you need to be a galvanizer, but sometimes, but not all the time. But all the time, your organization needs somebody to help galvanize, to help ignite the fire all the time that's needed. So what do? There is somebody on your team that has that as their genius, and they want to practice it more. And when they get to do that, it brings joy and life and energy into their work. And so even if they're a different role, or not, maybe even if they're laterally or lower on the totem pole, you can give them that ability, that authority to practice that genius in that area that your company lacks, or that's lacking in your team. But it takes great trust, vulnerability based trust, like not the trust that most organizations operate on. I spoke to a multi-million-dollar organization just the other day, and they don't have vulnerability based trust in their team. It was very evident. They kind of like kept things like, well, I don't want to share that really, and then like this thing over here, and I'm like, well, I don't really want to. I don't really want to release that area, that task, or that thing to this other team member, because I don't know. They kind of have this kind of weird quirkiness about them, and it limited their ability to succeed. But if you're going to be going from manager to leader, you're going to have to learn how to tap into your potential, remove that miserableness out of the everyday working. Some people switch jobs because of this. Some people switch jobs just because they don't know. They think they're miserable at their work because they're working so far out of their genius, their forces of nature. They're working completely outside of it. They've been promoted into that role, or they like, well, this is my profession, this is my education, so I'm going to go do that. And they get into it and like, oh my gosh, I hate all the tasks involved with this. This is terrible. And then they're like, well, I have to quit because I can't. This is just not me. Well, it's not you, but if you don't find out what is you, and then communicate that to your team, and then help disseminate throughout the team, so that everybody understands who they are and you are, and you can start sharing the tasks throughout your organization, as long as you trust each other and have the maturity and the ability to articulate it, because of your foundation of vulnerability-based trust. So you will need to give your team permission to do some of the things that you were doing, that you thought you had to do, but it kills your ability to derive energy and passion from work. That's why you have to have this level of maturity that not many leaders have. But this is really where you move from a manager to a leader that actually influences hearts and minds of your team, that actually is one of the best contributors because you're working so much of your work in your genius, in your force of nature. You will work in your genius or force of nature. If you work in this area, you will love your work almost in any industry. And I think that's a very important piece of information for every leader to know. So many times the person's not happy in their role because they're working all of their hours outside of their genius slash forces of nature. They're completely working outside of it. And when you work outside of it, you hate your life, you hate your work. But in almost any, you could transfer from working in a paper company to working in a consulting company to working in a, excuse me, a technology company. And as long as you're doing work that's within your geniuses, you could love your job each and every day and feel energized. And as long as you're working with people that you can love and trust. I mean, some cultures and organizations are just terrible. So, I mean, barring that, I want to make sure we bar that put that out of the picture. But if you're actually working within those tasks, you can almost work in any industry and be very happy and fulfilled. And that's why this stuff is so important. So you and your team will celebrate when you, as a leader, finally figure this out and start implementing in your organization, because they will finally see that how you value them as a team member. They will finally see how you are not afraid to share and trust people in your organization, and that does incredible things to lift you to whole complete new levels. So what happens when somebody has to carry, before anybody asks that question, I'm going to answer it. Well, so what happens when you have to carry out a task that you really dislike, something that you just hate, that you're super passionate about hating, and it sucks the life out of your soul, but you're the leader and you have to do it? Something like uncomfortable conversations. If you like uncomfortable conversations, which is going to be the subject of the next masterclass, you're kind of like weird, because none of us should really like uncomfortable conversations because they're uncomfortable. If you love being uncomfortable, it makes you a little strange. Okay. Most of us, we understand that we have to be uncomfortable to grow and to get to a different level in life. And that's okay. But if you just love being uncomfortable, that's a little strange. All right. So acknowledging it as a team and celebrating it when you do it. This is how you work through the inevitable step of having to carry out a task in your role that you really dislike. Example: Jim needs to participate in a meeting where enablement and invention are required, and because he's responsible for the outcome, he's got to be there. The leader has given him responsibility for the whole project, and this meeting is about enablement, but he is not an enabler. He's a wonderer, and maybe he's a galvanizer. And so he comes to the meeting. It's like, all right, everybody, we've got this really big objective. We need to do this thing. We need to get this thing done. And guys, right now, we've got to focus on the elements of this project. We've got to focus on the client base. We've got to focus on the strategy of how we're going to engage the community and how we're going to provide the services under this contract, and blah, 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 blah. And he goes on, right? And he goes on and on and on and on and on. But somebody says, hey, wait a minute, stop. Yes, we got to do all that. But if we're going to do it, you're going to have to shut up so that we can carry out the meeting. No, somebody actually doesn't do that because that would be unkind. But the point is, he's really good at that thing. And so he kind of wants to keep doing that thing. But the meeting is about enablement, and he has to be a part of it. It's an hour and a half long meeting. And because everybody on this guy's team knows that he's not an enabler and he hates this area, but he is responsible for this thing, they understand that while there's a part of galvanizing, they get in the meeting, he kind of galvanizes them forward to just focus on the thing. Now we're going to have to get work to doing the enablement part that's not really in his genius, and he's going to have to trust the team to carry that forwards. While he trusts the team to carry that forward, he has to be careful not to just start galvanizing or start inventing. Maybe he's a IG, right? A galvanizer and inventor. And maybe he's like, oh, but what about this? Or what about that? And they're like, no, right now we're enabling. We're sticking in this, like, this is, we have to do the enablement possible for this project to come to life. And if we don't, we're not going to be able to serve the client well. And so what do? The team knows his strengths, they know his weaknesses, and they know the meeting is tough for him. When you have a team that knows this about each other, it changes the dynamics. If you have ever been on a team that does not know these things about each other, which most people are, and then you get on a team that knows these types of things about each other, and you communicate them often, you find out that you're way more connected. There's so much more productivity coming out of the team. And when the conversations happen, or when things like maybe little mistakes happen, somebody galvanizes too much or starts inventing when you're actually doing this enablement work stuff, they understand, like, wait a minute, okay, Jim, we know that inventing is your strength here. This meeting, we're really trying to work on the enabling this project to push forwards. And he's like, gosh, you're right, guys. I'm just going back into my comfort zone because that's the area I love to operate in. But okay, let me step back from that. Let's you guys take it forwards. But you acknowledge and you celebrate your strengths, and you encourage people when they have to work through meetings where it sucks the life out of their soul, or projects or work tasks that sucks the life out of their soul. And this type of work environment on your team, and you as a leader facilitating this, so you know this about yourself, you know this about your team, and then you facilitate these type of activities as you work through the day-to-day activities of producing stuff in your organization. This creates such a connection and such an ability to produce stuff that you can't see in any other organization. And it produces that environment. It creates an environment where you almost can't help but win, lift the organization to a new level, enhance and draw everyone in, and create the best possible next products. Because everybody's operating in a zone that they're best at. And when people do that and they don't dread coming to work on Monday, the business changes and you change, because you're changing, because now you're leading as a leader should lead, because you're actually participating in the people's lives in a way that benefits them more than you and I could ever imagine. I think that's one of the very reasons that we've been given this position of leadership. Unifies and draws out the strength of the team, and it lifts the performance of the team to the highest levels. So remember how in the beginning I talked about this is something that is so important, that if an organization has it, it gives you almost an advantage over all other organizations in your industry. And it's something that's theoretical, but that very quickly moves down to tactical, so that when you carry out these activities, it lifts the production of your team to levels that you would never achieve if you were disconnected and all working outside of your areas of expertise. The best part about all of this, and I think the most meaningful part, is that you begin to love your work again. You actually enjoy showing up on Monday. So Sunday evening, you're sitting at home and you're thinking, and the thought of work comes to your mind for next week, and it's like, man, it's going to be a good week. And no more do you sit home on Monday evening and be like, oh gosh, it's Sunday evening. I mean, no more you do that, because you actually love where you work. You love your team and the tasks that you get to do now. You get to do these tasks. You're not forced to. You get to do them. And they're right inside your strengths. And so I know this sounds like, wow, well, that's too good to be true, but it's true in my organization. And it's true in Patrick Lencioni's organization and many of the organizations that he teaches. And this is more of a productivity, leadership, growth, productivity methodology than it is simply some kind of a inspirational thing, because this leads directly to tactics almost immediately. Once you find who you are, it takes 15, 20 minutes max. And then you start applying that to the tasks and the work you have and to your whole team. This rolls out an entirely new system of task delegation and productivity. And all this happens in 2-hour meeting. It's done. You've revamped your organization. People are working within your geniuses. They're charged up. You're charged up, because now you don't have to do any more of those things all the time that make you miserable and suck your life out of your soul. And you're leading at the highest level, because leading at the highest level always lifts the entire team. Because when you get better, the team gets better too. Trust is built, and you can accomplish more than your wildest dreams with those same team members who you thought before were kind of a drudge, were kind of not ever fully producing everything that they could, not living up to their full potential. Everybody's kind of fussing, and people are groggy and unhappy when they come to work on Monday. But actually, these types of teams, they're charged up, they're excited, they're ready to do the work. They can't wait to be like, okay, finally, the weekend's over. Now we can get back to doing the things that cause us to prosper. And I'm so good at this that I just really enjoy it, that I charge forwards, and it's better than you would ever imagined. It's more exciting than you ever imagined. Now, the companies, of course, you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, even with such teams. But when you have downs, they're less down, because you have such a team working in their strengths, doing the greatness, pulling out all of that greatness inside everyone and applying it for the benefit of everyone. And it creates an environment and a team, and you're an advantage in the marketplace that you might not ever be able to experience otherwise. So guys, I want to thank you for spending this time together with me. If you have questions, please go ahead and shoot them in the chat right now. And if you have questions and we're not live, go ahead and post them, because we're going to look at this. We see all of those comments and questions that come through, and be happy to answer them. So guys, join us for session 3, because this is just one step of the journey in creating strong leaders. Uncomfortable conversations. One of the biggest areas that leaders who are going up the chain, they try to cast it off of they're like, it's beneath me, I don't need to do it anymore. But we're going to roll into that and talk about it, and talk about how we can make it something that's not as, that you don't have to dread as much. And a lot of times we dread stuff that we're not actually good at. And so hopefully by the time we're done with the next masterclass, you'll actually be good at it, because it's a requirement for your organization to have uncomfortable conversations. And so if you get really good at it, you won't dread it anymore, and you'll be able to fulfill that very critical role as a leader. So thank you very much for spending your time with me today. Again, my name is Jason Ellinger. You can find me at Jason Ellinger, Taika CEO on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to both of our channels on there, so you don't miss the next masterclass about uncomfortable conversations. And we're going to talk about when, what, how, and what to do after in that session. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next week on Wednesday.